Supreme Person in the Vedas and among the people. Ato, Smi Lok Ved Ca Pratita Purushottama. He is celebrated as the Supreme Person in the Vedic scriptures and in popular understanding. Understanding this is true knowledge. Yomam evam asamudho janati Purushottamam. One who knows him as the Purushottama, without delusion, is the knower of everything and engages in his full devotional service. Delta goal. Surrender and devotion. Sasa bhaj imam sarv bhavena bharat. Such a wise person engaged in his living devotional service with all their being. Conclusion. Verse 20. Krishna concludes the chapter by stating that this is the most confidential part of the scriptures. Whoever understands it will become wise and endeavor will reach perfection. In summary, of the Bhagavad Gita reveals the supreme as Purushottam, the ultimate reality beyond the material world and the liberated souls. Using the powerful metaphor of the inverted banyan tree, it emphasizes the need for detachment from material attachments and surrender to the Supreme Lord to attain his eternal abode. The chapter highlights the Lord all-pervasive as the source of everything and encourages unwavering devotion as the highest form of knowledge and the path to ultimate liberation. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 16, Devasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga, the yoga of the division between the divine and demoniac in detail. The Bhagavad Sampat Vibhag Yoga and clear and contrasting description of distinct type of human nature, divine, Devi, and demoniac, Ari. Lord Krishna delineates the qualities that lead to spiritual progress and liberation as that lead to bondage and degradation. This chapter serves as a practical guide for self-assessment and for understanding the forces at play in the world. Here's a detailed breakdown of the topic covered in this chapter. 1. The divine nature, Devi Sampad, verses 1 to Krishna begins by listing the transcendental qualities that characterize those born with the divine nature, which lead towards liberation. Fearlessness, abhaya, steadfastness in spiritual knowledge and freedom from anxieties caused by material attachments. Purity of existence, sattva samsuddhi, internal and external cleanliness, both physically and mentally. Cultivation of spiritual knowledge, Janana Yoga Vivasthiti, firm self-realization. Charity, Danam, giving in charity without expectation of return. Self-control, Dhamma, restraint of the senses. Performance of sacrifice, one's actions and resources for a higher purpose. Study of the Vedas, Swadhyaya, regular study of sacred scriptures. Austerity, Tapa, voluntary acceptance of hardship for spiritual advancement. Straightforwardness, Arjavam, honesty and sincerity in dealings. Non-violence, Ahimsa, abstinence from causing harm to any living. Truthfulness, Satyam, speaking the truth that is beneficial to others. Freedom from anger, Akrodha, control over one's temper. Renunciation, Tyaga, detachment from the fruits of actions. Peacefulness, Santi, tranquility of mind. Absence of all finding. Apashun, not finding fault in others. kindness, and empathy. Towards all beings. Freedom from covetousness, low loop to absence, greed, excess desire. Gentleness, Adeva, mildness and humility. Modesty, sense of shame in performing improper actions. Freedom from envy, akapalam, steadiness and absence of agitation. Energy, teja, spiritual strength and enthusiasm. Forgiveness, Shama, tolerance, and the ability to pardon offenses. Fortitude, that perseverance and steadfastness. Cleanliness, camp, internal and external purity. Freedom, malice, adroha, absence of ill will towards others, absence of excessive pride, timana, humility and lack of arrogance. Krishna states those endowed with these divine qualities are born for liberation. 2. The demoniac Asuri Sampad, verses 4 to 18. In contrast, Krishna describes the qualities of those born with a demoniac nature, which lead towards bondage and degradation. Hypocrisy, dambha, outward display of religiosity without inner conviction. Pride, darpa, self-esteem and arrogance, conceit, abhimana, sense of superiority, anger, krodha, uncontrolled rage and resentment. Harshness, cruel and offensive speech, ignorance, ajnanam, lack of spiritual understanding. Krishna elaborates on the mindset and action. The lack of faith in scriptures, vritim ka nivritim ka jana vidurasura, they do not know what should be and what should be avoided according to religious principles. Denial of moral order, na sokam napi kakaro na satyam idiot, they have no cleanliness, proper conduct, or truthfulness. Materialistic worldview, asatyam apratishtham te jagat dahur aniswaram. They believe the world is unreal, without any basis, and without a controller, God. Driven by lust and anger, kama masritya dasapuram dambamana madanvita, driven pride and false prestige, they engage in abominable activities. Obsessed with sense gratification aprimyam ca pralayantam upashrita, their anxieties are endless, lasting until death, and their primary goal is sense gratification. Belief in materialism as the ultimate goal, kamopabhoga parama itavad iti nisita, they are convinced that sensual enjoyment is the highest aim of life. Bound by hundreds of desires, asapasa sater baddha kama krodha parayana, entangled in a network of countless desires and driven by lust and anger, they strive to accumulate wealth and restlessly. Arrogant pride, idam maya labdam imam se manoratham, about their passions and future acquisitions, thinking themselves powerful and happy. Atheist and blasphemy toward God and devotees, dvesuyaka, they are envious of others and blaspheme religious principles and devotees. Krishna states that these demoniac individuals attached to lust and anger are repeatedly born into lower species and ultimately descend into hell. 3. The three gates to hell, verses 21 to 22. Krishna identifies the three principal gateways that lead to degradation and hell: lust, kama, and control and desire. Anger, dha, and control, rage and resentment. Greed, lobha, excessive desire for wealth and possessions. He emphasizes that every sane person should abandon these three destructive forces. By freeing oneself from these gates of hell, one can cultivate qualities that lead to the highest destination. 4. The importance of scriptural authority, verses 23 to 24. Krishna stresses the significance of following the injunctions of the scriptures, Sastra. Disregarding scriptural injunctions leads to degradation. Ya Sastra vidim ushja vatate kama karata. Those who disregard the rules of the scriptures and act according to their whims do not attain perfection, happiness, or the supreme destination. Scriptures as the guide. Tasmat sastram pramanam te karya Tao. Therefore, the scriptures are the authority in determining what ought to be done and what ought not to be done. Acting according to scriptural guidelines leads to liberation. Janatva Sastra Vidhanma Yatkam Kartum Miharasi. Knowing the injunctions of the scriptures, one should act accordingly to gradually elevate oneself. In summary, chapter 16 of the Bhagavad Gita provides a crucial understanding of the two fundamental paths in life: the path of the divine nature, characterized by virtuous qualities leading to liberation, and the path of the demoniac nature, marked by negative traits leading to bondage and suffering. Krishna clearly delineates these opposing forces, urging Arjuna and all beings to cultivate divine qualities and reject the destructive tendencies of lust, anger, and greed. The chapter emphasizes the importance of scriptural guidance in navigating the complexities of life and attaining the ultimate spiritual goal. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17, Shraddha Trai Vibhaga Yoga, the yoga of the vision of three kinds of faith, in detail. Chapter 17 of the Bhagavad Gita, titled Shraddha Trai Vibhaga Yoga, addresses Arjuna's question about the faith, Shraddha, of those who do not follow scriptural injunctions but still engage in worship. Lord Krishna reveals that faith is also of three kinds, corresponding to the three modes of material nature: goodness, rajas, passion, and tamas, ignorance. This chapter explores how these different kinds of faith influence one's actions, choices of food, performance of sacrifice, arati. Here's a detailed breakdown of the key topics covered in this chapter. 1. Arjuna's question and Krishna's initial response. Verse 1 to 2. About the situation of those who, neglecting the scriptural ordinances, worship with faith. What is their condition, O Krishna, in goodness, in passion? Krishna replies that the faith of embodied beings is of three kinds, born of their own nature. Prakriti. He states that faith is according to one's disposition. Whatever nature of a person's faith, that is, they are. 2. Faith influences. Verses 3 to 10. Krishna explains how the three modes of nature affect people's choice of food. Food favored by those in sattva, foods that increase life, purity, strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. These are savory, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart. Food favored by those in rajas, foods that are bitter, sour, salty, hot, pungent, dry, and these cause distress, grief, and disease. Food favored those in Tama, foods that are stale, tasteless, putrid, decomposed, and consisting of remnants and untouchable things. This illustrates how one's inherent faith, influenced by the dominant mode of nature, dictates even basic choices like diet. 3. Faith influences sacrifice. Yajna verses 11 to 13. Krishna describes the three kinds of sacrifice. Sacrifice in sattva, performed according to regulations without desire, reward, with the connection it is due. Sacrifice in Raj performed with the desire for the fruits of action and for the sake of sacrifice performed contrary to scriptural regulations without offering food, without chanting mantras, without giving charity, and without faith. This highlights motivation and adherence to civil religious practices are also governed by the three modes of faith. Four, faith influences austerity, verses 14, 19. Krishna elaborates on the three kinds of austerity. Austerity of the body, tapa, word, supreme Lord, Brahma, the spiritual master, and the wise, cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence. Austerity of speech, mayam tapa, speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, not agitating others, and also regular recitation of the Vedas. Austerity of the mind, manasam tapa, satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purity of thought. Then classifies as based on the faith with which it is performed. Austerity in sattva, performed with faith, without desire for reward, and steadfastness for the sake of the Supreme. Austerity in rajas, performed with desire on and with hypocrisy. It is temporary and uncertain results. Austerity in tamas, formed out of foolishness, with self-torture or to others. This demonstrates how even spiritual practices like charity can be colored by different sorts of faith. Faith influences charity. Verse 20. Krishna describes the three kinds of charity. Charity in sattva, given out of duty without expectation of return. Time and place and worth person. Charity in rajas, given with the expectation of return or with a desire for fruitive results or grudgingly. Charity in tamas, at a proper place and time to earn the persons without respect and contemptuously. This shows that even the act of giving, which is considered virtuous, is influenced by the underlying faith and motivation. 6. The significance of Om Tat Sat, verse 23 to 28. Krishna concludes the chapter by explaining the transcendental sound vibration Om Tat significance in special endeavors. Om, Om indicates the supreme absolute truth. Tat, Tat signifies that, referring to the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth. Sat means the real and the good. Krishna states that from the beginning of creation, these three words have been used to indicate the supreme absolute truth. Brahmanas, Vedic hymns, and sacrifices are designated by these three syllables. He emphasizes that all sacrifices, austerities, and charities be performed with faith in the Supreme. Actions performed without faith, whether sacrifice, charity, or austerity, are impermanent and without spiritual benefit in this life or the next. In summary, Chapter 17 of the Bhagavad Gita reveals that even faith, which is the foundation of spiritual practice, is influenced by the three modes of material nature. Krishna explains how these modes manifest in people's choices of food, performance of sacrifice, practice of austerity, and acts of charity. The chapter concludes by highlighting the importance of performing all spiritual activities with faith in the Supreme Truth, symbolized by Om Tat Sat, emphasizing that actions performed without faith have no lasting spiritual value. Gita, 18 Moksha Sanya Yoga. Yoga of liberation through renunciation. In detail. Chapter 18 of the Bhagavad Gita, titled Moksha Sannyasa Yoga, is the concluding and summative chapter. It revisits the concept of renunciation, sannyasa, and abandonment of action, tyaga, clarifying their true meanings and emphasizing the importance of acting according to one's nature while remaining detached from the fruits of action. Lord Krishna summarizes the essence of the entire Gita, reiterating the path to liberation through knowledge, devotion, and selfless action, culminating in complete surrender the Supreme Lord. Here's the detailed breakdown of the key topics covered in this chapter. Arjun question renunciation and Arjuna asks Krishna the distinction between sannyasa, renunciation, and tyaga, abandonment, seeking clarity on these important concepts. 2. Krishna's explanation of renunciation and abandonment, verses 2 to 12. Krishna clarifies the meanings of sannyasa and tyaga. Sannyasa, the renunciation of all actions that are based on desire for material enjoyment. Tyaga, the abandonment of the fruits of all actions. He then categorizes tyaga into 3 types, based on the modes of nature. Tyaga in sattva, righteous abandonment, abandoning obligatory duties because they are troublesome or out of fear of bodily discomfort, is tyaga in the mode of passion. Tyaga in rajas, passion, abandonment, abandoning obligatory duties because they are troublesome or out of fear of bodily discomfort, is tyaga in the mode of passion. Tyaga in tamas, ignorant abandonment, abandoning prescribed duties as evil or out of delusion, is tyaga in the mode of ignorance. Krishna emphasizes that true abandonment, sattvika tyaga, involves performing one's prescribed duties without attachment to the results and the end that it is duty. States that it is an embodied being give up action entirely. It won't give up the fruits of action. Those who are not attached to the fruits of action and are situated in goodness do not incur karmic reactions. The 5 factors of action, verses 13 to 17. To understand the mechanics of action, Krishna explains the 5 factors accomplishment of all action, as described in the Sankhya philosophy. The place of action, adhishthanam, the body. The performer, kata, the individual soul, influenced by ego. Sense and instruments of action, mind and senses. The endeavor, sesta, the effort of striving. The soul, the ultimate controlling factor, the sanction of the divine. Krishna clarifies that one who, due to false ego, thinks themselves to be the sole performer of actions does not truly understand the process. 4. The three impulses to action, verses 18 to 19. Krishna describes the three factors that impel one to act. Knowledge, jnanam, the understanding of the object of action. The object of knowledge, jnanam, the goal of purpose, the action. Janata, the one who possesses the knowledge. Similarly, actions, the performer, and the instruments of action are also of three kinds according to the modes of nature. 5. Knowledge, action, and the performer as influenced by the modes, verses 20 to 28. Krishna elaborates on how the three modes of nature influence knowledge, action, and the performer. Knowledge that by which one sees the undivided spiritual nature in all living entities. Knowledge in rajas, that by which one sees different kinds of living entities as separate. Knowledge in that which is superficial, clings to one aspect, and is without real understanding of the truth. Action in sattva, regulated, performed without attachment, without love or hatred, and by one who is desirous of the fruits. Action in rajas, performed with great effort, by one seeking to gratify their desires and driven by ego. Action in tamas, formed in illusion, in defiance of scripture, junctions, without regard for future consequences, and causing injury to others. Or in sattva, free from material attachment, not egoistic, full of domination and enthusiasm, and equipoised in success and failure. The performer in rajas, attached to fruitive work and its results, greedy, envious, impure, and subject to joy and sorrow. The performer in tamas, always engaged in improper action, materialistic, stubborn, deceitful, lazy, dejected, and procrastinating. 6. Understanding, determination, and happiness influence the modes. Verses 29 to 9. three modes affect understanding, determination, and understanding in sattva, by which one knows what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, what is to be feared and what is not, what is binding and what is liberating. Understanding in Raj, that which cannot distinguish between righteousness and righteousness, and between what ought to be done and what ought not to be done. Understanding in tamas, that which considers the wrong path to be right and sees everything in a distorted way, covered by darkness. Determination, which is unwavering, sustained by yoga practice and controls the mind, life and senses. Determination in rajas, that which is attached to fruitive results in economic development and sense gratification. Determination in tamas, that which is stubborn, holds on to illusion, is sleep, never free from foolishness. Happiness in sattva, that which is initially like poison, but in the end like nectar, arising from self-realization. Happiness in rajas, that which is initially like nectar but in the end like poison, arising from the contact of the senses with their objects. Happiness in tamas, that which is elusive from beginning to end, arising laziness, and delusion. 7. Prescribe duties according to one's nature. Verses 40 to 48. Krishna reiterates the importance of performing one's prescribed duties as we dharma according to one's inherent nature, determined by the modes of nature. He emphasizes that even perfectly perform duty in accordance with one's nature is better than perfectly performed duty belonging to another. One does not incur sin by performing the duty ordained by their own nature. One should not abandon their natural duty, even if it has flaws, as all endeavors are covered by some fault. 8. The path to perfection through one's own duty. Verse 49 to 50. Krishna outlines the process of attaining perfection. Of being one described with detachment by cultivating knowledge. Detachment from material attachment.